Manx Radio's Countryside is brought to you by NFU Mutual.
Hello and welcome to Countryside here on Manx Radio. I'm Simon Clark.
And I'm Kirree. At the weekend, I headed over to St John's to catch up with the Manx herbalist.
And Starlight and Moonlight. They bring back memories. Well, they're back spotted in Peel Bay. I speak to Jen Adams from the Manx Whale and Dolphin Watch. Well, more news on that as the programme goes on, Kirree. But, yeah, it's did you see the eclipse, the partial eclipse?
Well, it did look very grey over the Isle of Man when it was occurring, so whether it did block out the sunshine or whether we were just having a dreary Manx day, I don't know.
Yeah, but lambing finished on the countryside things?
They're getting underway. Cavan's well underfoot now as well. The countryside still could do with a bit more warmth. It is greening up slowly. A lot of the groundwork has been done. We've been very lucky with the weather, like I've said in previous programmes. It has made a massive difference to young stock being born and getting them outside. But no, let's hope we have a good April. It's always quite chilly through April, so let's hope the grass comes nicely.
Yeah, and it's a funny time of year, isn't it, when you're involved in the country, because you've got the mix of the beautiful smell of the daffodils and the wild flowers, and then you've got the farmers out spreading muck and piling it into the fields. So it's a bit of a mix-up, isn't it?
It's great to see the farmyard manure getting used again, stepping away a little bit from some of the artificial fertilisers.
Certainly cheaper.
Absolutely. But that said, the garlic is coming now through the sunny orchard, and you see the little shoots on the hawthorns, and some of the early flowering cherry blossoms are out in pink array. It's that time. It's really special, isn't it?
Yeah, lots of natural things around the Isle of Man that can be used, and that'll bring us into our first piece.
That's it. Jane, the Manx herbalist over in St John's has been running courses for a number of years. What knowledge she has. I caught up with her just ahead of her workshop, Where to Start with Healing Herbs. Well, Jane, here we are out on a what looks to be a miserable day in St John's, but what a layout you have here for this afternoon's workshop. Now, the course you're doing today is Where to Start with Healing Herbs. Now, I don't know too much about herbs generally. As much as I'm a farmer, I probably should do. But how did you get involved with this side of life?
Well, it's a long story, so I won't go into the full details, but I'm a chartered landscape architect by main profession, so I've been involved with designing landscapes for people and thinking about plants, passionate about the environment for many years. I then, through some quite interesting personal stories, got involved I'm a herbologist, so I'm not a medical herbalist. So herbology is the study of medicinal botanicals. So it's not just plants, it includes things like seaweed and fungi, mosses, but any botanical that has an effect on our bodies to maintain health or to treat ailments would be classed as a healing herb or a medicinal herb. And so that's what I teach about. I set up the Manx Herbalist in 2018 and I run regular workshops. I run this particular workshop every couple of years just to introduce any new people to the whole concept of my idea of how you would start to study about these fantastic botanicals. Interestingly, I'd say 3/4 of the ladies who are coming today have actually been regular attendees at my workshops, but I do have 2 or 3 new people, so I'm looking forward to meeting them.
And isn't it fascinating that herbs have obviously been around for a very, very long time, and it's nice now that people are actually getting back in to wanting to know the knowledge, the history and their uses again?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, we've evolved with plants and we will have used them for millennia for treatment. I teach what's known as traditional Western herbalism, which goes back to the ancient Greeks and Romans. Hippocrates, probably know that name.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then comes through the monastic traditions, the sort of village wise woman, and then the rise of pharmaceutical and biomedical care. And so over the last couple of 100 years in the Western world, we've lost that. But we have to remember that for a large part of the world's population, particularly in rural areas, will still use plants and herbs for treatment of disease and maintenance of health. And I just think it's fantastic there has been a resurgence in an interest in this and a realisation of how important it is for our health, but the health of our planet as well, and our physical health and mental health, and just getting out into nature and meeting these wonderful plants.
so, so true. There is nothing better than getting out in the countryside in the fresh air and just taking it all in. And you mentioned there, Jane, about the wise woman. Now, with herbs and this kind of idea of medicine being made from a plant comes the stigma of maybe, oh, she could be a witch or, spoken negatively about. Now, that really isn't the case.
Oh, not at all. If anybody was ever to suggest, ask me, am I a witch? I'd say, well, what's your concept of a witch? Is it somebody who wants to do evil and cast evil spells and ride around on a broomstick? Or is it somebody who has an interest in natural medicines and really wants to do good and cure people around them? So I would very much pass that question back and say, well, what is your concept of a witch? And just take it from there. So.
And today we've obviously got a table laid out with some that I recognise, beautiful herbs, little jars and vases. Now we've got the stinging nettle. It looks a bit of a prickly bunch, that, but obviously got great uses.
Yes, one of my favourite plants because it's so maligned. And yet it's such a fantastic plant. It's one of our what's known as a salty herb, so rich in minerals. You have to be careful where you collect it from because it does take minerals up from the ground. So if you're on contaminated ground, you'd have to be careful. But this being a mineral-rich herb is very much what is known as a spring tonic herb. So it's not a herb that we would use after, say, June, because they start to lay down silica crystals in the leaves. But collected at this, as I have done this time of year, just the top, pinch off the top, 2 or 3 whirls of leaves, and it's very much a blood purifier. It's a tonic for us as we come out of the winter and into spring. And the other thing is it's fantastic for our wildlife as well. A lot of butterflies, we talk about food plants for butterflies, but they need plants for their larvae as well. And so butterflies like small tortoiseshell will lay their eggs on nettle as well. So it's just a super plant. And I know people don't like it because it stings, but just wear gloves. It's my way.
This is it, exactly. And I obviously see the dandelion flower there in all its glory, bright yellow. Again, good for nature, but obviously good for us too.
Yes, another of my personal favourites, because don't we all love to dig out a dandelion? And I can't say I let dandelions completely tromp around my garden, but I do grow them, and the leaves in particular, the young leaves are great in salads. So dandelion is one of the bitter herbs, and you've probably heard that taking bitters stimulates our digestion, and also the root as well. So my ladies today will be tasting a root decoction, which again is a bitter, so that'll just help with digestion. Bile production.
And that said, you mentioned the flower, the leaf, and also the root. You can use the whole plant.
It's part of learning. This is part of what I'll be teaching. Is you can't necessarily use the whole plant. So with dandelion in herbalism, it's would mainly be the root and the leaf. You could use the petals, but the stalk, for instance, the sap in it is slightly caustic, so that actually can be used to treat warts. Just applied to the skin. But I wouldn't be suggesting to somebody that they consumed the stalk. It would be the leaves and the root that you would focus on. And sometimes, for instance, nettle, I don't use the root, but I have recently heard of people who will tincture the root. But this is where it gets, I say, I'm not a medical herbalist, so there will be different uses.
But isn't it hard to believe these just grow in the hedgerows amongst us, around the fields, just down the farm lanes on the island, and yet just so great for us?
Absolutely, yes. And I think it's, as you said, just getting out into nature and just being able to notice what's around you. So for me, if you pass a dandelion, even if you're not going to stop and pick it, at least knowing its history and what it's called and recognising it and how it could be used, to me just makes the walk just all the more richer, because you can notice what's around you rather than just walking along stuck in your head with what's going on in your problems in your day and everything.
This is so true. And also with cooking and flavours and taste, you'll often hear that rosemary and thyme and different herbs are added to meat dishes, etc. Is this side quite interesting as well?
Yes, I don't actually know of any culinary herb that isn't also a medicinal herb. I'm an ambassador for the Herb Society, which is a UK charity celebrating their 100th anniversary in 2 years' time, and they're focusing on herbs as food this year, just to show the breadth of using herbs. And we mentioned before about the greater interest in the gut biome, and that we should be expanding the number of different plants that we use every week. And incorporating medicinal herbs into your diet, I think, is a fantastic way of doing that. But using them in slightly bigger quantities than if it's just as a pinch as flavouring.
And can you grow herbs on like a larger scale? Can they be farmed as such so that we can, get what we require for our daily intakes?
Yes, I mean, many of the herbs that are produced are farmed commercially around the world. There's a very interesting study that's just been done about the supply of herbs, and there have been bad stories of things like echinacea being stripped out of natural environments, so that would be farmed on a large scale. There is a debate about whether a plant that's growing in the wild is more potent than one that's grown in the luxury of a farmed situation. But I think those are all issues that we need to address, and just the whole supply chain. But this again is why I encourage people to grow their own, bring the herbs into their garden. And I mainly teach about herbs that are in our own environment rather than some of the things like, say, the Ayurvedic herbs like ashwagandha. And astragalus. I know about them, but I don't really teach about them because I'd rather use herbs that are in our own particular environment.
So people can get involved, Jane. They can grow a few in pots in their gardens, in window boxes. Is this something that you would recommend just to get a start made, maybe?
Yes, absolutely. I ran a workshop last year about growing herbs, and that started with, if you haven't got the space, just put a few into pots and put them on your windowsill or on a balcony or anything, and then that goes from there up to a full medicine garden or physic garden where most of the plants in your garden can be used medicinally, as in my garden. Yeah. So it depends on what scale you want to take it to, really.
This is it. And obviously the workshops, we can find those on your website, Jane. How do people get in touch with you?
My website, manxherbalist.com, has the information on it, but they can contact me through that and my email address. There is also a subscribe button on that website, and I send out 2 monthly newsletters, one at the new moon, which is today, and one at the full moon, and I give lots of information through that. And my subscribers get first notice of my workshops and get an early bird discount as well. So that's my main way of connecting with my lovely audience.
And I think we better let your audience in. They're waiting out in the rain. God love them. Well, thanks for your time today, Jane.
Thank you for coming to talk to me. It's been fantastic.
Good luck with the workshops.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
There we go. That was the wonderful Jane, the Manx herbalist.
It is great that that use whatever we can use around the Isle of Man. A lot of people, and this was something that goes back thousands of years when there was no real medicine, and they used herbal stuff and what they could get in the countryside, and lots of old Manx tales as well about different herbs and things that get used, isn't there?
That's correct. Like at lambing time, I know when sheep don't eat, they get sent out. Go and get some ivy. They're going to eat the ivy. And sure
Not the
enough,
poison ivy.
Not the poison ivy. They'll pick away at the ivy if they'll not eat anything else a lot of the time. And I know that other farmers have used other various Manx grown products, and it does work. But the healing benefits within it, lots of drinks, the dandelion drink, mint teas, lots of herbal teas, it all stems back to some very, very basic foraging. And I think we're lucky here on the island that we still have that going on. Lots of local produce being used.
You're listening to Countryside here on Manx Radio with Kirree Kermode and myself, Simon Clark. Well, it's great, the coastal waters around the Isle of Man, for viewing seals, basking sharks, whales and dolphins. And, well, who better to tell me more about it than Jen Adams from the Manx Whale and Dolphin Watch. Well, first of all, Jen Adams, great news. 2 probably your favourite dolphins are back in Peel Bay.
Yes, so Moonlight and Starlight was seen in Peel yesterday, which was the 26th of March, and they were seen really, really close in, so right by the entrance to the harbour where the bridge over to Fenella is. They're not usually seen that close inshore, so that was really exciting for the people of Peel to spot them.
Yeah, well, Moonlight and Starlight, of course, mother and daughter, I believe. How long have they stuck together?
So Starlight is now 5.5 years old. So they've been here resident to the Isle of Man ever since she was born back in September 2019. And they are resident all year round. They don't get spotted that often or reported during the winter months, but it's mainly just to do with the weather and a lack of people outside actually looking for them. And then come the summer, obviously more people are out there, more people are seeing them and reporting them.
How common is it for the them to stick together for 5 years, then the young ones don't branch off on their own and experience life like the humans do?
Well, they do. So Moonlight and Starlight are really unique as dolphins go. They don't behave like normal bottlenose dolphins. So usually you get big pods of bottlenose, mixed sex as well. But you might find that young male bottlenose dolphins do go off and sort of form these kind of groups of like young males that go around seeking out new territories and things. But Moonlight and Starlight, because they are like a solitary pair, as we call them, they actively avoid other big pods of dolphins. Then it is just the two of them, and they cooperatively feed. You see them hunting fish together and things, and they're obviously quite content in each other's company. We don't know what's going to happen. Obviously, one of the questions we get asked the most is like, how long will Starlight stay with her mum, and how long will they stay around the Isle of Man? We really just don't know.
And mum, obviously, I think, is it fifth Starlight, is it? Fifth baby?
Starlight is her fourth calf.
Fourth.
Yeah, so she had 3 others when she lived in the Moray Firth over on the east coast of Scotland as well. One of her other calves, Luna, currently lives off the Clyde, and he's part of a little resident pod of about 5 other dolphins there.
Yeah, it must be satisfying to be able to track them and find out where they are.
It is, and the great thing is that we don't tag dolphins. It's actually illegal to tag dolphins in the British Isles. Elsewhere around the world, it's fine, but they're known as sentient beings here, and they're legally classed as that. So we have a fantastic, completely non-invasive alternative to tagging, which is taking high-quality photographs of the dorsal fins. So Moonlight's dorsal fin is unique to her because she has these 2 little notches in the top of the trailing edge of her fin. So that's like her fingerprint. So that's how we know who she is, and obviously her backstory of where she came from.
What brings them back to the coastal waters of the Isle of Man, or why they stay here during this time of year?
So we think that Moonlight and Starlight have become resident here because they know it's a safe enough place for them to be. There's obviously lots of food for them. They never, if they had problems with food availability, they probably would have gone elsewhere by now, but they're quite happy.
Do they have many predators in the Irish Sea?
No, not at all. No, the only thing that would harm a dolphin would be, of course, any sort of human interaction.
Of course, there is some bits and pieces in place as well to protect particularly them two and other dolphins around the Isle of Man as well, isn't there?
Yes, so we have various code of conduct. So there is a code of conduct for behaving a vessel around all whales, dolphins and porpoises. And there's a specific code of conduct just for Moonlight and Starlight because they behave so differently. They regularly come really close into our bays. They interact with swimmers, paddleboarders, kayakers, and we have seen them interacting with jet skis as well. So as you can imagine, it is really, really important that people do look at this code of conduct, which is available on the Manx and Dolphin Watch website and on our Facebook page. And, as a Manx community, we need to look after all of these marine creatures, but especially Moonlight and Starlight.
Yeah, something special to you, isn't it? But other activity has been spotted as well, has it?
Yes, so this has been a really productive month, actually. The whole of March, we've had all of our local dolphin species all come back to the Isle of Man in March. So we've had the return of the Risso's dolphins. So they always leave the Isle of Man for the winter. We don't know exactly where they're going, probably just further offshore, maybe down into the Celtic Deep, where it's a bit deeper and there's more food. And they come back to the Isle of Man every year in March, and then they will spend the whole summer here until the end of September. So we've got a little...
beautiful warm seas, isn't it?
A beautiful warm seas, maybe for some. So we've got a pod of about 10 Risso's dolphins in Manx waters at the moment. They were seen off Marine Drive last week and also down at the Calf of Man about a week and a half ago.
And a typical pod, do they vary for species, the size, how many dolphins are in each pod?
Yeah, so the Risso's dolphin's usually smaller pods. So at the moment, there's about 10. Later on in the summer, we might expect to see up to sort of 20 or 30 in a pod, but we do have small numbers of those. However, other species, such as the short-beaked common dolphin, which are a much smaller dolphin with kind of yellow, like hourglass pattern on their side, we're seeing huge pods of those guys in recent years. Actually, numbers of short-beaked common dolphin have increased massively, just not just around the Isle of Man, but around the whole of like the west of the British Isles since 2020. So to put that into some kind of perspective for you, last year we had 40 individual sightings of short-beaked common dolphins, and pod sizes exceeded 200 individuals. Imagine seeing 200 of these dolphins all together off the Manx coast. But in comparison, prior to 2020, we only ever saw groups of like maybe up to 20 or 25 individual dolphins, and only about 7 sightings of them per year. So lots more of them at the moment. They used to be exclusively a summer visitor, but now we're seeing them all year round as well, well into like November and December and all the way through the winter as well.
It's incredible, isn't it? And from somebody who's so enthusiastic about all of the creatures around the Manx waters here, to hear so much of decline around the world in different types of species, but to hear numbers coming to the Isle of Man increasing by so much must give you heart.
Exactly. Our dolphins are doing so well around the Isle of Man at the moment, like really, really well. Such a positive sign of a healthy ecosystem. And we think that these dolphins are coming back because of increased prey availability. So there's a lot more herring, obviously nowadays, than there used to be. So their main food source will be the herring, but also lots of different other fish as well.
What about the basking sharks? That's a big favourite around the Isle of Man. I mean, 40 years ago, people were going, oh my goodness, there's a shark out in the Manx waters, But now the education is so good to the youngsters, so educated. People go, oh yeah, they're lovely. It's such a change over these sort of last 5 decades on people's perception of them, isn't there?
Yeah, so people realise exactly what these animals are like. They're obviously not going to harm humans. They're gentle giants, really. But numbers have been decreasing of the basking sharks around the Isle of Man for over a decade now, actually. I'm sure many of you out there can remember the days when there used to be, it seemed like hundreds of basking sharks off the Manx coast. Tales of fishermen feeling like they could step across sharks to get back to land. Now we have very few basking sharks around the Isle of Man. Last year there were 17 sightings, I think. And yeah, it really has kind of dropped off. However, it's not all bad news. So they're not around the Isle of Man, but they are being seen in other regions of the British Isles. So last year they had hundreds of basking sharks off the west coast of Ireland. And they had them for pretty much the whole season, from like early February all the way through till October as well.
So all in all, still about, and your enthusiasm hasn't dwindled at all. And of course, so many, I can see all the crayons out here on the desks from the kids coming through and the youngsters, and they must love coming in and hearing about them still.
Yeah, they do. Yeah, you can't beat people's enthusiasm, and that's what the Manx and Dolphin Watch Visitor Centre is all about. It's about enthusing people about what you can see and getting people excited and realising that you don't have to be on a boat to see these incredible animals. You can spot them very easily from the coastline as well.
But of course, the sightings, you can't be everywhere, Jen. Rely a lot on the public to report any sightings they see of any activity around the island?
Yeah, so any sighting of whale, dolphin, porpoise, basking shark, please report them to Manx Whale and Dolphin Watch. The easiest way to do it is to go onto our website, and as soon as you type in Manx and Dolphin Watch, find the website. On the homepage, there'll be a link to report a sighting. Fill out a very simple sighting report form. You don't need to register or anything. And that just gives us all of the information. Even if you are not sure what you've seen, you're like, I'm sure I've seen a dolphin, I don't know what it is. Fill out a report form anyway, and we will get back to you and we'll ask you all of the questions, and we'll probably be able to work out what you've seen. But especially Moonlight and Starlight, because they're so famous around the Isle of Man, people watch them and they assume that, oh, somebody else will report them, we don't need to. But if everybody took that mindset, then no one's going to report them. So we would rather have 20 people reporting Moonlight and Starlight in Peel rather than no one reporting them.
And is it fairly unique that there would just be two of them together?
Yes, so they are always together. Sometimes you might think you've just seen one dolphin, but the other one will be there just a little bit further away. But typically you'll see two dolphins and they'll be really quite close inshore. They're the only ones that are brave enough to come right into our bays.
Right, incredible. And the Whale and Dolphin shop here in Peel?
Yes, so we will be open on Saturdays. So every Saturday, 10 till 4 is a good time to come and visit us. And we are open on some weekdays as well, but it's always good to check the Facebook page for our opening hours because they do vary week by week. And we'll be here during the Easter holidays as well.
Well, great chatting to Jen Adams there from the Manx Whale and Dolphin Watch, and so enthusiastic is Jen, and telling us to report any sightings no matter what you think. And great to see Starlight and Moonlight back, just the mother and daughter swimming around Peel Bay. You know,
Isn't it lovely?
Yeah, just enjoying the company of people.
Yeah, it was great. I saw a clip on Facebook of them dancing around a fishing boat there as they were making their way out of the harbour. It's just wonderful that we've got this on our doorstep here on the Isle of Man. I think we take it for granted sometimes. You know, we can only be a couple of miles from a different change of scenery. The vast amount of nature and special sightings that we have here. What a great place to live.
Just a bit of a mention before we finish on the programme today. The Isle of Man International Shears Competition 2025. Well, entries are now open. For that event. It's been very popular.
Amazing.
It'll be happening at the Gilcook Farm in Andreas again. And if you want to get involved in that, find out more about it, or enter yourself, you can contact Philip on 07624 if you're off Ireland, 479 866, or email isleofmanshearing@hotmail.com. Entries close on the 16th of May, so get your entry in as soon as you can to secure a place in the Isle of Man Shears event. And you could get in there. You'll have done a few in your time.
Yeah, had a good go over time, but it says back-breaking job. It's not easy. But it's hard to believe only a few weeks from now we'll be probably shearing some of the yearlings ourselves. So, yeah, it's some days when you look out and it's grey and miserable like this, and then in 3 weeks' time some of the wool will be getting taken off these sheep. It's hard to believe. But no, get involved. You can even just help wrap up the wool or pen up some of the sheep. They're always looking for helpers on that day, a very special event.
Yeah, because classes include the juniors, intermediate, seniors, open, and prizes as well. And as you said, people for wrapping the fleeces as well. All helps. It's a great team there that are there as well. Great friendly bunch. So go along. Stick it, have a look at it, see what they do, and help out if you can. That's it for this week's Countryside, though. Don't forget, you can listen to any of the Countryside editions on Manx Radio's website. Just download the podcast. It's free as well. And if you've got anything for us, countryside@manxradio.com is the email, and we'll see you next week at 5:30. Until then, from me, Simon Clark.
And me, Kirree Kermode.
We see you then. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.